Hi everyone, it's so lovely to be back with you for this Vitalise series where we've been reflecting on some really big questions and we've been thinking and focusing on how, in the midst of everything that we're facing at the moment, how does our hope in Jesus help us to deal with those things that we are facing? So what I've chosen to do today is invite each member of the team back and just to ask them to reflect back on some of those questions that we were considering and some of their key thoughts. So Darren, so lovely to have you with me this morning. Thank you for joining with me. And Darren, in your video right at the start of this series, you were tackling a really big question, and that question was, why did Jesus allow this pandemic to happen? Where in this situation do we know the hope that we have in Jesus? So Darren, are you able just to share or sum up your thoughts from that?
Yeah, I think it's such a big question, and a question that all of us maybe have asked. Why's God allowed this? And in some ways, there's no easy answer to that question. But some of the one of the things I drew out is that when we suffer, we have a God who understands suffering. He's not distant. He didn't just stay away from it. In effect, he got his hands dirty. He experienced this life with all the pain and suffering that is a part of our life. And during this time of coronavirus, we have a God who understands what's going on. He understands what it's like, and he's with us. He's with us right there beside us during these hard times. And in my video, I tried to kind of unpack some of the reasons as to why this may be happening. But the important thing is that God is right there beside you when you're finding it tough, when it's difficult. We have a God who's right there beside us, and we can call on to answer, to help us, and to know He's with us. And then I shared a picture of a tapestry. And how on one side of the tapestry it just looks a mess, a tangle of different
Threads.
can't think of the word. Threads, that's the word, thank you. Different threads, and it just looks a tangle. It looks a complete mess. But when you turn it over, the side it's meant to be looked at, it's a beautiful picture. And I think that us and God are on different sides of the tapestry often. We're looking from the bottom, and we look at our life and what's going on. We just say it's chaos. It's a mess. What is going on here? I can't understand what's happening. God is looking at the other side, and He is using those threads to make something beautiful and amazing out of our lives, but also the lives of people around us. He looks at that bigger picture, and occasionally gives us glimpses of what that is, which is really encouraging for us. But yeah, understand, even though it looks like a mess from one thing, the Bible tells us that God sees beauty in it, and He's making it into something beautiful, our lives and the lives of people around us. And that's why, during our times of suffering and during this time, hope has a name, and His name is Jesus.
Thank you, Darren. I'm somebody that really relates to visual images like that picture of that tapestry, and understanding, where God is with us. And in the same way, in my own video where I talked about how do we share Jesus during this pandemic, I use that picture, that analogy of perhaps at the moment feeling like we can be in a dark tunnel. But knowing that at the end of every dark tunnel there is a light, and for me that light is the hope that we have in Jesus. That light is there. It's always there. It's a constant. We are walking towards it, and we know that Jesus has being victorious over the darkness. And so for me, knowing that that light is there, knowing that that constant is there in my life, knowing that that light represents for me the love that God has for me, that unconditional love, that knowledge of who I am in those dark places. And there will be many people that feel at the moment like they are walking perhaps through these dark places, these dark tunnels. It's for me, knowing the light's there, being able then to reach out to them, to extend a hand, to walk alongside them, to listen to them in their own struggles and challenges and difficulties and highs as well. As we walk through this, there's really good times, there's really amazing things happening, but just to be there in that knowledge that that hope is there for me in my life, and that God is there with me. And so yeah, being able to I guess give out to others and show love to others from that knowledge of the hope I have in Jesus in my own life. Thank you, Darren. Thank you for sharing that with us this morning. And I'm going to go now and interview another member of the team. So Rebecca, we were reflecting on where is God during this pandemic. So how can our hope in Jesus help us to understand where God is at the moment in all that we're facing?
So for me, as I've reflected on that question, Gemma, as I've considered where is God in the middle of a pandemic, I have been really encouraged by some words from Deuteronomy in the Bible, from chapter 31, verse 6, and it says this: "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you or forsake you." Those words were spoken by Moses to the people of God in a really tough time. They were spoken by Moses as the people of God journeyed through exile to make it to the promised land, a long and hard journey. We're reminded again of that promise later in the New Testament in the book of Hebrews. You know, it can be so easy to reflect and go, yeah, but that was just a promise that was spoken to the people way back then in Bible times. But actually, I think we can take great comfort that it's a promise for us as the people of God today, just as much as it was for the people of God back then. You know, being a Christian doesn't mean that life's going to be easy. There are absolutely going to be struggles along the way, perhaps even like a pandemic, a situation that we are currently finding ourselves in. And actually, as I reflect on this, I think the question isn't where is God in the pandemic? It is instead, are we inviting God into the situations that we're facing? Are we inviting God into the emotions, into the mess, into our struggles? Because hope has a name, and his name is Jesus, and Jesus will never leave or forsake us.
Thank you, Rebecca. That's so good to be reminded of those promises, those truths in the Bible, that, like you said, when we are asking that question, where is God? Actually, God is there, and we can hold to that promise. And what we need to do is invite his presence to be with us through this. Thank you so much. So, Nikki, it's natural to feel a sense of disappointment in our lives, and we might be feeling quite disappointed at the moment. So how can our hope in Jesus help us to deal with our disappointment?
Yeah, thanks, Gemma. I think for me, the thing that was really struck me when I was preparing the thing on dealing with disappointment is the fact that on the road to Emmaus, these disciples had spent time with Jesus, and they were still wandering along in confusion and were so fed up and disappointed by what had happened that they couldn't, quite work it out. And they'd had Jesus there with them physically, and they were still struggling with that. And the thing I love is the fact that Jesus just comes along and walks alongside them in that time as they try and process all those feelings. So I used to think maybe the people in the Bible kind of had it all sorted, but actually the more I realise is that they're just like you and me, but Jesus draws alongside. And I think that the main thing is actually we are going to be fed up, we are going to be disappointed, and it's not right to pretend otherwise, but actually it's taking it to Jesus and allowing him to help us process those emotions, allowing him to carry some things, and to realize that actually, you know, we don't have all the answers, and we're not going to have all the answers, and that's fine, but he is with us in it all. And so for me, that is my hope in Jesus, is that I can trust him to carry the things that I can't carry or understand.
That's really helpful, Nikki. Thank you. Yeah, just that understanding, like you say, of knowing that when we feel disappointed, and we are going to feel disappointed in life, it's knowing that Jesus is there walking alongside us, and just recognizing that he wants to do this journey with us and help us through those disappointing feelings. So thank you for that, Nikki. And finally, Darren, thank you for coming back and joining me again. So in our final part of this Vitalise series, we were considering, you know, in the uncertainty that we're facing at the moment, when so much of our plans have changed, how again does that hope we have in Jesus help us at this moment to just understand and to, I guess, accommodate how we are feeling towards those plans that have changed?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a tough time for many people with their plans. A lot of people's futures have seemingly in tatters. Their future plans, you know, people who are planning for exams this summer and now not sure quite how they're going to be assessed and how they're going to get graded. You know, people who are planning to go to university who now are not able to. You know, home situations have changed. People have lost jobs. There's so much uncertainty, and it's really hard to know where God is when our plans just go completely wrong. I reflected a little bit on the story of Daniel, and sometimes we forget that the very beginning of Daniel is that Daniel is a man either in the royal family or nobility who's been trained up to be an authority, to be one of the big figures in the country, to run the country. And suddenly Babylon invades. He's taken away to a completely different country as a young man, and then trained to be a servant of the king, not someone in authority, a servant. His plans completely changed. But as you read the story of Daniel, you realize that him and his friends, what doesn't change is they just trusted God. They trusted God in everything. They made amazing stands for God when they knew that they had to follow God. They had to do the right thing. They made amazing stands, but through it all, God was with them, and God blessed them, and people around them came to know God because of the stands they did. And it's just amazing that it just shows how God is with us when our plans change. I know from my story, he's with me when my plans changed. I didn't imagine that I'd ever be recording videos to go on the internet. That would have scared me. But you know, the whole of my plan changed. But I know that God has been with me, and I found in a place where actually I think God knew better than I did about what would satisfy me, where I could be used in more amazing ways. You know, I go back to the picture of that tapestry that I talked about earlier. You know, when our plans change, we think, what's going on? It's chaos. Looking at the bottom of the tapestry, God is putting his plan together on the top of the tapestry. And it will end up, when we trust God, we often end up in a place where we're more satisfied, but God can use us more. And actually, if we looked back at it, yeah, it's probably in a better place to follow God's plans rather than our plans. And so in time of uncertainty, yeah, there's definitely hope in just trusting God and seeing where his plan will take you, rather than being upset about that our plans have changed.
Thank you, Darren. That's such a great encouragement, and so exciting that, as you said, it's just allowing God into those changing plans. Do you know, if you haven't had the chance to look at any of the Vitalise videos in this series, then I really encourage you, if you've still got questions, and we've all got questions and we don't know the answers to all our questions, but it's just allowing us and ourselves the time to explore those questions a little bit further and dig into that hope that we have in Jesus. And so I do just encourage you to go and to check out those videos if you haven't already. And we really look forward to seeing you for our next Vitalise series.